Kaya, welcome. Great to be here today on Wajak Noongar country, and I want to also express my thanks and appreciation, acknowledgement of the traditional owners on the land on which we're meeting here this morning. Can I also acknowledge Susan Hunt, chairperson of the WA Feral Cat Working Group, Judy Dunlop, also of the Feral Cat Working Group, and all members of the group, Julie Quinn, Office of the Threatened Species Commissioner, Dr Reece Whitby of WABC, and also Professor Paul Thomas of University of Adelaide, who's one of the speakers later on this morning, as well as Councillor Aidan Lang, who has particular interest in domestic cats. As Minister for the Environment and responsibility for DBCA, obviously my focus is on the scourge of feral cats. And I take it we are all dog people in this room today? No? Get out. I'm very much a dog person, so I come from a starting position of not particularly being too enamoured of cats anyway, but the impact they have on our native species is quite devastating. And I also note the presence of many Aboriginal rangers in the room today, and I want to acknowledge and say thank you to the support you give. Your knowledge of country is so critical in the way we care for country, and I know it really impacts you to see the loss of native species as well. So thank you for your involvement here this morning. This year's theme is progress with meaningful on-ground management of feral cats to benefit our native species. So it's a catchy line, but more importantly, it actually indicates what this forum over a couple of days is all about. And I just want to thank everyone for your involvement, and I know you've come across from across Western Australia, and I think some across the ditch from some Kiwis are here. Welcome. Thank you. We know feral cats are a major contributor to the decline of native species right across Australia, and no doubt having an impact in New Zealand as well. It is enormous. It is an enormous issue that warrants action. I want to again thank you for those fighting this scourge, and it's made up of community groups, traditional owners, local governments, state governments, researchers at our universities, many who are represented here today, continuing to fight against the impacts of feral cats and restore our native species and ecosystems. Now, recently I visited Dirkartog Island in October of last year to see firsthand how eradicating predators can benefit our threatened wildlife, and it's quite remarkable. I think it's certainly one of the largest islands in the world, and one of the, quite a rare event that all predators have been removed. And some of the scientists that visited the island just remarked, it took a while for it to sink in, that when they looked around the sandy shores of the island and the sandy interior, they could see an abundance of tracks in the sand from native species, and it sort of hit them that there are no feral cats in this place, and it's something that they don't see to that extent anywhere else in the country. So the Return to 1616 project saw the area become the world's largest island to have feral cats, sheep and goat eradicated. And this was in 2018. Now 7 species have returned to the island, most recently the dibblers, which once thrived on Dirkartog Island until feral cats wiped them out. It was feared they were extinct for nearly half a century. It was feared we lost them altogether, but they were rediscovered near Albany in 1967, and then some other places in our southwest, and from that population they have been re-supported and reinvigorated as a species. Dirkartog Island is now a safe haven, and we're working towards securing the future of these species, and the predator-free home gives hope to their long-term survival. Now, we all know feral cats are a major contributor to the decline of threatened native animals, including western ground parrots, Gilbert's potoroos, the chuditch, woylies, numbats, mainland quokkas and bilbies. In WA, 36 mammals, 22 birds and 11 reptile species are vulnerable to predation by feral cats. Our government has strengthened measures for protecting our precious wildlife by declaring feral cats a pest in Western Australia in June 2019. Maybe it should have been done before that, but we did it in 2019. This has helped raise public awareness of the massive impacts they have, and since that declaration, DBCA, the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, and other key stakeholders have been working to develop the Western Australian feral cat strategy. It's set to be released in the coming months. The strategy will provide a framework to guide investment and ensure consistent and coordinated approaches to feral cat management here in Western Australia. New methods and technologies will be investigated. It's important to stress the Western Australian feral cat strategy is about controlling feral cats for conservation outcomes. The purpose is to protect our endangered wildlife from predation. We take the presence and the devastating impact of feral cats animals very seriously. Western Shield is WA's leading wildlife recovery program and is actively reducing the impact of both foxes and feral cats on native animals. Yesterday, Mr Ashley Miller from DBCA spoke about this program, and Dr Dave Algar presented on WA's feral cat research and management over the past 30 years. The program has led to substantial and sustained population increases for many native species, including the numbat, the woylie, the western brush wallaby, the black-flanked rock wallaby, as well as some reptiles and ground nesting birds. Recently, I attended the Dryandra, the newly created Dryandra National Park, down in our near an area near Narrogin, and we went out on a night spotting exercise. And we virtually saw all of those species that were returning within about half an hour. So this program is having a very impressive result. The primary tool used to manage introduced predators is 1080 baiting, covering approximately 3.8 million hectares of DBCA managed lands and adjoining lands. So research shows baited areas have significantly higher numbers of native fauna than areas that have not been baited, up to 3 times as many for species like the chuditch and the woylie. DBCA collaborates and organises with community groups to enhance the effectiveness of their fauna recovery. And one example is the expansion of fox and feral cat control in and between the Stirling Range and Fitzgerald River National Park with Bush Heritage Australia and private land owners. There is an additional amount of funding of $1 million over 3 years from the global charity that has allowed DBCA to trial the use of Eradicat, feral cat bait, and strengthen the protection of 14 threatened species in the Northern Jarrah Forest. There are other approaches that are being looked at. I know I was with all Environment Ministers meeting in Brisbane at the end of last year. Feral cats were a topic of conversation. There was a lot of interest and input, and there was a lot of talk about what we can do in the meantime in terms of baiting, fencing, the Felix program, which I think has been trialled in Western Australia and I think has been overwhelmingly successful in identifying feral cats as opposed to native species. The other area which we had a bit of a discussion about was gene technology, and I know Dr Thomas is going to expand on that later, but that was seen as a more prolonged approach. It promises a magical outcome where they can just breed out, but there's some issues and some challenges there. But it's certainly something that there's interest in and support of as a long-term measure. The issue of domestic cats, Councillor Lang's going to discuss, and I know that you brought up the issue of domestic cats impacting our Kings Park area in the central part of Perth, and so I commend you on your actions there. I know my colleague, the Minister for Local Government, has carriage of that area. I know that it's feral cats that have a terrible impact on our wildlife, but domestic cats also have their share to blame in our suburbs and country towns. And so we need to act in terms of domestic cats also, because they do impact on native species. So I'll be supporting my colleague when he has a review of the Cat Act and how local governments can have more of a role in impacting that area. And just one thought, I mean, we know that it's not acceptable to let our dogs run loose and run up and down the street, and socially we understand that, and we need to understand it for cats as well. So look, finally I just want to say thank you again to the WA Feral Cat Working Group for the invitation today. Thank you for the insight, the experience and the effort that is being shared here at this forum for the couple of days that you're meeting. Thank you for sharing ideas and working on this issue. Very early on in my political career, I went to a conservation forum, and someone said if you could just change one thing to protect the environment and biodiversity, it would be to get rid of feral cats. Just, that would be their number one action. So I understand, how important it is to preserve the species that we have in this country. We're very blessed. We've lost too many already, but efforts today are going to help address this in the future. We need to do as much as we can in the meantime before we get to that, hopefully, effort that actually solves the issue. Whether it will be ever solved completely, but we need to do all we can to protect our native species. So thank you very much, and well done, and good luck for coming up with new ideas and concepts and approaches. Thank you.